for some reason, it all was so clear. You know, it was just like the picture started to form itself. The songs started to create themselves. I was able to look back and be a narrator of my own situation.
We go through relationships and then past relationships and about love and about sex and all those other things. And we somehow in the midst of that, we come across a record. And that's the best, I guess you could say, fuel for creativity is when you're actually pulling it from real life experiences. It's just more soulful that way.
So I grew up in the 90s and was pretty late in my appreciation for R&B. But in my defense, when Boyz II Men released End of the Road, I was 4. However, as I grew through the late 90s and early 2000s, it felt as if a wave of American black culture was crashing onto the British shores. The Fresh Prince, Kobe and the Lakers, Nia Long, and suddenly kids in London were wearing Avrex jackets, FUBU jeans, New Era caps. It's like we were part of some long distance block party. And just when me and my friends were starting to notice women, we also discovered our dad's stash of R&B music. And it couldn't have been a better backdrop for our coming of age story. And whilst we now know about some of the more sordid aspects of the music industry during that period, I'm willing to stick a limb out and say that the music of the time didn't just sound better. It made people better at love. I cannot explain to you what it was like hearing Lauryn Hill and D'Angelo croon over Nothing Even Matters for the first time. And it wasn't a one-off. Artist after artist was putting down beautiful music that reflected a relationship culture that was willing to pursue, engage in emotional risk-taking, as well as practicing repair. And look, I'm not here as just another old head to dunk on the new school, but there was a reason that this season had so many people loved up. So let's go ahead and talk about that. I'm Sam, and this is The Connection Room. Now, I know it's easy to get lost in the nostalgia of R&B music that was made in the late 90s and early 2000s. The Boyz II Men harmonies, TLC's feminist coded honesty, and Janet Jackson's blend of seduction and choreography. But that era wasn't just about entertainment, especially for those of us navigating relationships for the first time. For people like me, it was a kind of blueprint for expressing emotional depth, owning up to mistakes, and wanting to be in love with someone. When Lauryn Hill dropped X Factor, it wasn't just a breakup song. The definitive way in which she states that no one will ever be capable of loving that person more than her is impressive, but it also is heartbreaking. And there's a reason that that song has over 385 million streams on Spotify. Because hearing Lauryn Hill say, "Tell me who I have to be to gain some reciprocity," was a rallying cry for others inside of similar relationships who were asking the same question. So whilst men in rap were talking about turning ops into Swiss cheese and drug dealing, men in R&B were talking about their mistakes and how they wanted to make things right. Up and down the charts, men and women were pouring out their hearts, and our understanding of how to experience love was being shaped by that message. Now, back then, in that glorious time, there was no Tinder fingers, there was no DM sliding. You approached women at your universities. If you were old enough, in the club, you planned your dates in advance and you waited for calls. That's if you even had a phone. I have African parents. This need to be patient created emotional tension, and R&B is submersed in it. Songs about counting the days and fantasizing about what you can't have yet. The mystery didn't need to be manufactured because it was baked into the way that we were dating. When that woman you were crushing on agreed to go on a date with you, you might not see her again until you pulled up to the restaurant, park, or museum. Yes, I've had museum dates. Can't you tell I'm a person who would like museum dates? Not seeing or maybe speaking to each other for days wound up the tension, which in turn made the moment that you met in person feel a lot larger. But today we are in touch constantly. A WhatsApp message in the morning, a reaction to an IG post in the afternoon, and sharing TikTok memes in the evening. There's a good chance that I may have seen a potential love interest in her underwear before we've even been on a date. And I'm not trying to shame anybody, it's just an observation. What I want you to realize is that the space that created anticipation before is being stuffed, packed, and filled immediately. So when you see her pull up in the outfit that you saw her buy on the IG story, it doesn't really hit the same, because when everything is instantly available, what the hell feels special? Today we talk a lot about men's mental health and being able to speak about issues affecting us. And I don't know about you, but R&B was really my first gateway into that headspace. I come from a Ghanaian culture where the male boomers are more likely to turn to the bottle before they turn to somebody for help, let alone their wives. So seeing men dancing in the rain, asking for love and second chances was an aspect of a love I'd never seen before. And maybe that's how my parents felt about Al Green, Stevie Wonder and Sam Cooke. But bro, when I heard Boyz II Men sing At the End of the Road, that isn't guys singing with a cool indifference. These are men who were undone. How much do you have to love somebody to say publicly? And while that message might get laughed off the stage today, it's an important message because these men were cultivating a culture of love, and the culture decides what feels normal. In that time, you had grown men harmonizing about missing one woman and nobody was making fun of them. In fact, women were flocking to their shows and dragging their boyfriends to make sure they got the damn message. Cultural critic Mark Anthony Neal put forward the idea that black popular music has long been a space where black masculinity is renegotiated. But more than any other genre, R&B at the time gave men permission to be emotionally expressive in ways the broader culture had previously denied them. At the same time, women were declaring that they were willing to reciprocate. We listened to Lauryn Hill, Monica and Brandy because they were talented and beautiful, but also because they were able to frame women, and especially black women, as the epicenter of being able to experience love. They weren't just asking to be wanted or desired. They expected to be valued and respected as women. And for that, they offered you a relationship that was rich and meaningful. In this regard, female R&B artists aren't just singers. They became emotional architects for how black love felt during that time period. But our current obsession with being sigma coded means that we're treating our romantic relationships as a zero-sum game. Sociologist Eva Illouz claims that modern romance is increasingly following market logic. We brand ourselves, optimize who we are, and then treat attraction like it's a competition. But when love becomes a competition that you can lose, the person who is cheating or breaking things off earlier is seen as the winner. The magic was partly the music, but a lot of it was the environment. There were fewer options, attention wasn't a currency, and men and women in that era felt rewarded for actively pursuing and working through their relationships. In that time, a relationship unveiled itself in chapters. You had time to wait, wonder, and imagine. Having the space to do that stretched our emotional tolerance. And that's where R&B from the 90s and early 2000s lived. Different environments just produce different emotional habits. And in an environment where people can take their time, patience is king. But when the system is faster, speed wins the day. So if you're like me, you can often find yourself pining for music made during this time period. But it's still out there. Artists like the girl group Flo, the Canadian singer Daniel Caesar, and rising star from my neck of the woods, Jazz Karis. Let's not forget that Kalani had arguably one of the biggest songs of 2025 in Folded. And even then, we don't have to time travel to recover what worked during that time. Build up a playlist that introduces anticipation again. If you get some good news, don't immediately rush to text your partner. Hold it off until you see them in person. The message that R&B offers isn't dead, but the culture really did stop protecting it. If the culture won't protect it, then maybe we should. I'm Sam, and until the next time, make some room.